Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past summer, on July 7th, a mother of 2 young children, Carolina Hubner Muckrat, was fatally shot by a stray bullet from a gunfight between drug dealers near a so-called safe injection site in Leslieville, just east of downtown Toronto. The alleged suspect who was responsible for her death was out on bail at the time. He was also banned from possessing weapons and was obviously not allowed to deal illegal drugs. So a man out on bail, involved in a drug deal gone wrong, got into a gunfight with another drug dealer, and a mother of 2 young children was shot to death in Toronto. Just the other day, on September 14th, a man who had been charged with first-degree murder for gunning down a person sitting in their car pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was out on bail following that. He is now wanted on a second charge of homicide, so killing someone else when he was out on bail. On June 14th, in southwest Edmonton, a man shot multiple rounds, killing another man in a back alley. At the time of this murder, he was wanted by police for failing to attend a sentencing hearing for murdering another person in July 2020. After pleading guilty of manslaughter for that murder, he was let out on bail, then failed to appear in court and murdered someone else. So again, murderers being let out on bail and murdering more people, all in the past number of months. Also in June, a video went viral. I'm sure you probably saw this, Mr. Speaker. No number of us did. It was very alarming and disturbing. A video went viral online of a man stabbing another man multiple times on a subway in Toronto. The suspect, who has been charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, assault with a weapon, and 2 counts of failing to comply with a release order, was out on bail at the time. So just riding the subway, I've taken the public transit and the subway in Montreal and in other cities on multiple occasions to think that you could be sitting next to someone who is out on bail for violent crime, like this man who stabbed this other man multiple times. That is not something that Canadians deserve to deal with every day. That is not something I think Canadians thought that they would ever have to deal with. And yet, if you read the news on a regular basis, you know that assaults, stabbings, shootings, murders inside and outside public transit have become, unfortunately, the norm in many parts of our great nation, Mr. Speaker. In August, I'll just wrap up with a few more examples, because I could go on all day. We've all heard them, we've all read them. It's endless. But in August, news broke that a man accused of 4 cold cases of sexual assault in Vancouver was released shortly after being charged. So a rapist, 4 counts of rape or sexual assaults, released on bail into the community. Could be walking among us, released on bail. I didn't realize that Canada had become like this, Mr. Speaker. And when researching for today, it was tale after tale. Violence against women, murders, shootings, stabbings, physical assaults, over and over and over again. And the crime stats back this up. So it's not just in our head. We're not just paying more attention now to the news or social media. Not that we can get the news on social media anymore, thanks to this Liberal government, Mr. Speaker. But certainly the stats from Stats Canada itself backs this up. In fact, since the Liberals formed government in 2015, violent crime has gone up 39%. 39%. Murders are up 43%. Gang-related homicides are up over 108%. Since 2015. Violent gun crime is up 101%. And again, this is in light of legislation and OIC and legislation of so-called gun control going after law-abiding hunters and sport shooters in this country that they've promised will end gun violence in this country. After all of that effort and all of that division, gun crime is up over 100% under their watch in the 8 years that they've been in power, Mr. Speaker. Obviously a very failed approach to addressing violent gun crime in this country. Sexual assaults are up 71%. Again, this is a feminist government, as they say, at every opportunity. Sexual assault, we know these are mostly against women. 71% increase in sexual assault since 2015. And the next stat is difficult to say, but sex crimes against children are up 126% since 2015.
Unreal.
And then, of course, car thefts are up 34%, pales in comparison to sex crimes against children. But we hear as MPs, car thefts are through the roof, especially in major cities. You can't leave your car outside. Even in your garage, there's devices to steal them now. So we hear this over and over and over again. And I'll remind the House that of the 44 shooting-related homicides in Toronto last year, 17 of them 17 of the accused were out on bail at the time. In Vancouver, the same 40 offenders were arrested 6,000 times. 6,000 interactions with police in 1 year from 40 people. The people of Vancouver deserve far better, Mr. Speaker. Why can't we do something with those 40 people that are causing mayhem, that are causing hardship, that are causing assaults and harms and rapes and thefts and abuse? Why is it that they continue to walk free time and time and time again? And even more troubling, the overall severity of crime in Canada, tracked by the Violent Crime Severity Index, has increased by nearly 30% under the Liberal government during their 8 years. And I'll remind the House again that under Prime Minister Stephen Harper, the same metric fell by 25%. It was down 25%, now it's back up 30% under the Liberal approach. And for my constituents in Winnipeg, crime is one of the top things I hear from them. It's not just in their heads. In fact, since 2015, violent criminal code violations increased from 9,400 in 2015 to over 14,000 last year. 9,400 in 2015 when they took the wheel, the Liberal government took over 14,000 8 years later. The stats speak for themselves, Mr. Speaker. The Liberal approach to dealing with public safety and violent crime is failing Canadians. Actually, it's costing lives, as we have seen. So this is not just a partisan issue. This is not just a difference of ideology. This is really the safety and security of women, of children, of the elderly, of people riding public transit, of men and women who are just going about their day. So it's very important that we're having this discussion. Conservatives have been leading the charge on violent crime reduction discussions in this House for years. We have been talking about bail reform for a very long time. And just now, in the past few months, that the premiers have sounded the alarm. Again, premiers from every political party have written multiple letters to the Prime Minister demanding bail reform. Police forces from across the country, every police force across the country that I've talked to says we need bail reform. There's also issues with parole, people getting out early on parole. There's also issues with conditional sentencing, people giving house arrest instead of jail time, and not following that house arrest and going out and creating more mayhem for people in their community. So all of this, and I did congratulate the new Minister of Justice for his new role. That's a very important role in Canadian society. He is tasked with the criminal code. He alone is responsible, in addition to his boss, the Prime Minister, for fixing these problems. What concerned me, though, is mere days into being appointed, unfortunately, he was quoted in Reuters. He said he believed that, quote, empirically it's unlikely that Canadians are becoming less safe. Those are his words. I asked him about it today. He seemed to backtrack. But again, that was his initial position, Mr. Speaker. So how do we trust the Liberal government, given this is their record, given they've made no moves until very recently to make any changes because of public pressure, and because pressure from the premiers and pressure from police? Everybody and their dog is asking for bail reform, tough on crime measures. Now they're doing something. They're bringing forward a small bill, about 7 pages, to fix a problem that was created by a bill that was over 200 pages, Bill C-75 from a few years ago. That was a Liberal bill that made it easier to get bail, bottom line, about 5 years ago. Now they brought forward a piddly little 7-page bill that they're telling Canadians will solve all the problems. Well, I don't believe them, Mr. Speaker. I don't believe them. I believe the minister's words when he said he didn't really believe there was a lot of crime going on. Again, I'm paraphrasing. But he sort of downplayed the concerns of Canadians. I've read you the stats. I've read you the stories. Clearly there's a problem. But I think there's no way we're going to solve this problem unless we have a change of government.
Hear, hear.
Conservatives have a proven track record of reducing crime in this country. Proven. It's in the data. The Liberal approach has failed. People are being harmed as a result. We have a Justice Minister who right out of the gate downplayed these concerns, again, making it seem like it's all in our heads. And I'll quote from the National Post. Adam Zivo wrote about this recently. I think it'll just sum it up really well, Mr. Speaker. He said, Canadians deserve political leaders who don't gaslight them about violence in their communities. If the Liberals want to tackle this issue half-heartedly and do only the bare minimum needed to temper public anger, then that's their choice, but it will be the end of them. I very much agree with Mr. Zivo, Mr. Speaker, but I would hope that we can see much more effort to address public safety in the remaining days of this government. But if not, this side of the House is ready and waiting to get to work, roll up our sleeves, and clean up our streets, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.